Every year, most couples all around the world, they sit down, make promises to themselves, or resolution, as you call it. This year, we're going to communicate better, we're going to create plans, we set goals, and maybe commit to better listening. We're going to have more quality time together, or maybe even fewer arguments and more understanding. These are good goals, right? But what if I told you that those communication resolutions might not save your marriage? Or just maybe that's not a bad thing, right? But stick around, because today we're going to see exactly why these communication resolutions usually fail, why they often fail, and how you can turn them into something that is truly transformative, something that will really work, and something that is truly results-driven. Now, let's be real. This idea of, improving communication, it really sounds amazing. It sounds good. But there's this problem. Most communication resolutions that people make are focused on fixing the symptoms of a struggling relationship, not exactly the root cause. Now, think about it. You can promise to listen more, but if there's already a resentment that is brewing underneath, how long will that promise last? How long do you think that resolution will last? Tell me. You can even agree to have, weekly date nights or regular check-ins, but if there is no emotional safety, or what I call this emotional assurance, those meetings or those check-ins will usually turn into battles or even fights. The truth is that communication issues are rarely the actual problem in a marriage. They are only a result of a deeper, unresolved, issues that have not been dealt with, like maybe needs that have not been met, like broken trust or a lack of emotional connection. Now, here's why those well-meaning resolutions often fail. I have a note, I have to put them down. So if you see me looking to the left or right, that's what I'm looking at. Number one, they are too vague. Something like communicate better. It sounds great. But what does that actually mean? If there's no clear, actionable plan, it's impossible to measure your progress. Number two, these goals usually ignore the emotional context. Now, communication is more than words. It's about the feelings that are behind the words. So if you're not addressing the underlying emotions behind these words, even the best communication tools won't stick. The next one is they rely on willpower alone. Real change in a marriage requires more than just good intentions. It takes consistent effort, it takes patience, it takes forbearance, and a plan to navigate setbacks. Sometimes it's hard, but you have to push. You have to try harder. You have to really make it work. Now, here's the good news. Why communication resolutions alone will not save your relationship or your marriage? It can be a powerful starting point if it's done right. Now, here's how to turn those resolutions into real change. First one, start with self-awareness. Ask yourself, what's blocking me from fully being present with my partner? Is it stress? Is it fear? Is it maybe past hurts or trauma? When you recognize your own triggers, this is usually the first step to better communication. It might be overloaded schedules, my dear young husband or my dear young wife, or no matter how long you've been in your marriage. If your schedules outside your home overweighs the time and the attention that you give to your spouse or your family, then you're wrong. You're doing something wrong. If your job, your career, or your relationship, or your religion takes the place of you giving time and attention and care to your significant other, to your spouse, then it's time for you to really sit down and reanalyze your priorities on a scale of preference. what am I doing right or what am I doing wrong, and what can I do to make it right? Secondly, focus on connection, not perfection. Instead of, aiming to never argue, focus on repairing quickly, possibly after a conflict. It's okay to mess up as long as you come back together with honesty and with love. When I and my husband first got married, we aimed towards not sleeping without resolving any conflict. We said, we're not going to go to bed without sorting out or resolving any conflict. But with time, we discovered that sometimes we might have to sleep over some certain types of misunderstanding. Think it through. Let everybody calm down, and then we'll manage it or resolve it later. But in whatever we do, or in whatever you do, have a timeline to come back and not make it to be very prolonged, The next step, create micro habits, small habits, not big promises. Forget huge, these audacious and life-changing resolutions. You know where you have been. You know how long you've been in this relationship. Start small. Maybe it's committing to 5 minutes of undistracted conversation each day, or learning how to say, tell me more, or just changing the tenses you use for your spouse. I have a story of how my husband I said in my last video of how my husband got a digital alarm clock for us to be using in the bedroom and make our room a totally no phone zone. Well, it didn't just start there. We first of all designed a schedule of how our normal day would be, who goes to pick the kids, when we both get back from our workplace, and then we created individual times for each of us to maybe round up with our day, and have some, individual time for us to settle our things and settle our day. And then we both draw the curtains. We had a time to say, okay, this is the time we should round up whatever you're doing in the day. This is the time we should round up, and then we should call it a day. Talk about small, deliberate steps in making things work for each other. Rome was not built in a day, so you cannot expect, perfection or this big result in one day. Small habits create big transformations. So can resolution save your marriage? Can communication resolution save your marriage? The answer is not by themselves. But when these resolutions, when these goals are paired with intentional action, with emotional vulnerability, and you see this willingness of you both to grow together, these goals can absolutely spark this lasting change and a truly beautiful bond and relationship with your spouse. And it's not about sticking to the resolution perfectly. It's about showing up for your spouse consistently, knowing that he's got your back, you've got his back, even when it's hard. And that's where this true transformation begins. A thriving marriage is not about being perfect. It's about being present. Well, if you're thinking of making the conscious effort of taking those small but actionable steps to making your marriage or your relationship better with your spouse this year, I shot a video previously on how to create simple and smart goals as a couple to harness your relationship better. Watch this video now and I'll see you there.